Hello traders, this is Alex with the StockMatrix program. We're going to do a review over the weekend. Timing came in, lunar eclipse is tomorrow. Um, this is my X account, kind of the standard intro. We're going to buzz through this. Not a whole lot's changed. We did have a couple trades that flipped here on Friday, and we'll review those. Actually, here they are. Again, I posted them on X. Amazon bought calls. You got out of the puts, bought calls. And IBM also flipped from the put side to the call side now. You can see that IBM was a small profit, ended up net little loser for the week. Let's and again, you can see we got about $47,000, 35,000 of exited stuff, right, which is the most important. Again, 150 grand fictitious starting that we started with. We had 111 trades, again, 17 of which we have currently on. All right, let's go now to the portfolio, which we have on bar chart. Again, it shows 47,000. Again, you can see a lot of these that were losers were rolls that we ran out of time. August options were expiring, so we had to roll, and then the trend flipped right after that, which is not uncommon. Something to remember in your memory banks and why these options are important, right? They're part of the influx of volume, right? Because if people have calls on and they exercise them, that adds extra shares onto the market. Vice versa for puts. So let's don't beat on this. We kind of talked about it. Let's now go to the StockMatrix program. Okay, here's the statistical page on the StockMatrix program, and you can see we do have some annuals that are coming in. A lot of these are over the weekend. So really not a whole lot right now. Coinbase had one that comes in today. We had two of them. Both were lows, right? Seasonality is important. And again, you can look at that. And we just finished up the lunar eclipse, so the next one will be quarter moon, and then the solar, which is my main thing that I've been studying over the last 4 decades of trading. So it's important to me, this next solar eclipse, or all solar eclipses actually. Let's now look at the trade sheet. Again, this is basis the stock side, right, not the option side. You can see that we're about $476,000 that we control on our option program. Just a little under $500,000, 100 shares each, right? One option is 100 shares, equals 100 shares. So that's why we can control a lot of this for little or nothing percentage-wise. We did have, here's our new trades, and both of these were barely clipped in there, and we'll review that here now. Let's go to the charts. Again, you can see that NVIDIA did get clipped in, back in here. So it did close lower and made a lower high and a lower low. So a little negatory. You can see this is kind of support, the old highs, if it takes its time, somewhere maybe if the eclipse is important, maybe down in here. Let's go to Meta. You can see again, we got clipped in here. So both of these two big dogs are now short or buy puts or bearish, depending, how you want to look at it. But we did hit the 1-to-1 and then bounced way back up here. So not real negative. Meta is one of those that have been pretty bully. And then we've recently kind of been a little chippity choppity. Here's Coke, the dud. Won't even talk about it. Here's Google, new highs. Again, you can see the bar strength, right? This is the low down here. Up to this first swing high, that took about 3. That's 26 of these squares, right, which are the square of 9. There's 26 right there, right? So kind of important, right? This, for every action, there's equal but opposite reaction. So I find that pretty important. And if we get stopped out, man, that'd suck. We'd leave a lot on the table. Now we'd still be profitable, but Jesus, you don't want to get stopped out way down here. It could happen, right? I mean, these markets are flinging around. Here's Microsoft. Again, we got stopped in a few periods ago. Push the stops down, manageable loss now. Here's Amazon, kind of just chopping, right? Chopped us in at the absolute high, closed lower than we got in. So kind of just a dud there. It hasn't made new highs, which is a little concerning. I mean, I thought we should have made new highs back in here, right? Popped it out, and then maybe had some weird correction. But it just can't go through it for whatever reason. Apple's just kind of there, but we are creeping now. Once we cross this zone of the previous solar eclipses, actually this right here, the 2 solar eclipses, and this 1-to-1, we are feeling a little, there's no pressure on the market. So, definitely got a ways to go to make new highs. And again, the speed of the incline is pretty slow. Let's move on. Here's Tesla. Again, caught in the channel, the coil, the pennant. Again, supports down here if it wants to have a little bigger lag. But we did get above this 1-to-1, and we've had now a couple closes, 3 or 4 closes above it. Won't get real strong unless we can, and fast if we get above this. This will be tough to get through, I would think, with the 2 eclipses up here. Well, the one we're on, right? So the data now will be done here, and we'll be in the quarter moon collection period. prior to the solar eclipse on September 21st. Here's Lynn. I can't believe it did not make a new high. We missed it by just a smidge. You can see there that we just couldn't get through it, which again I said at the time was pretty odd. And of course, I made the claim it looks like we're going to get stopped again, because again you can see that our stops have been hit. In the sideways markets like that, the system, like a trend following system, does take hits. Again, we're waiting for the long-term bender, right, like this one, where you make a lot of money. And hopefully these choppers, you lose a little, break even maybe, but hopefully the goal is not to lose a lot of equity in the chop. And again, if it happens quick, because we're out 30 days or more, more than likely we lose no more than half probably. If you spend $1,000, you lose 500, right, in time and equity chop. ED did make a new low, which we kind of talked about it probably would do. You can see it had a higher close, or steady close, but closed on its highs. So it's possible it could try to stop us out. And maybe it's still a low, right, a little trap action. We don't know yet. Here's Adobe. You can see that this market is just channeling down. Our stops, I wish it was up one notch, but hey, it's all right. Again, if you kind of confirm this double bottom, by making a higher trend here. So again, new lows would be a little negatory. And of course, you know how everything's gapping because their AIs don't freaking work. Here's IBM, speaking of the failure of their AI to work. I'm going to add this in here just because I think it's important for future video here. Not saying it's too obvious, but again, to me, I think that's going to be kind of important with that gap. We'll try to penetrate it and didn't even get halfway, right? This swing is going to be kind of important. And there might be some stops up here, and it might go up here and then go back. And again, you don't know. System don't care. We're currently long. It did have an outside period up, kind of an inside up period, which changes the short-term trend, and it dropped down this min period, but did not knock us out, and we stayed long, and then we closed higher. So a pretty important outside period. I'm not a big fan. To me, that's sideways, right? It doesn't. Back in when I was first trading, back the first 10 years of my trading life, I would put a lot of stake into these outside periods, like it was a big zone, right? Important, that it was a low. Well, now I've come to realize that inside days are no different than outside days. You made a higher high and a lower low, right? So it's a zero-sum game. The close next period will be kind of the tail of this kind of a chop period. All right, let's move on. Here's Bank of America, Bank of Magellan, BK. Stop stayed the same, moved over in time, an inside period, kind of just a slow slog, but it is creeping higher, and you can see it's a kind of on the one-to-one from that low on that blue line there. Here's Procter & Gamble, again, kind of a bear, but it did get us long a couple periods ago. Our stops are under it, so a manageable loss if it would happen to break back down. Here's JPM. Had a bad close, had a great early, Friday's trade was awesome in the morning, and then by the afternoon it gave it all up, plus some to the negative side. Now, again, on the moon chart that we are doing for the StockMatrix, it closed on the low, but it did not make a new low. So a little less threatening look, right? Our stops are vulnerable to get hit. The one-to-one, important one-to-one's down in here, right? So I guess you got to keep your stops tight here on this thing because it hasn't gone anywhere, right? Even though it made a new high again, we've only had one close, two closes in, I don't know, what is that, 10 periods, above the mid-range. So it ain't flying away, let's put it that way. Here's Coinbase, again, actually kind of bearish when their AI was busted, and it mysteriously had a gap. So yeah, I guess this stop appears probably a little more important swing-wise than where we got it, but we do have a triple threat. Again, I like anything of threes, right? 3 highs, 3 lows, 3 swings, 3 higher closes. I mean, that to me is always important, and how I reference things, hence why I use 3 here, right, for the stop. So again, a negative opening, again, since it's Friday and Monday will be our first trading day, some type of gap down or something would be pretty ugly on Coinbase and would cause a stupid, really big gap, right? Jesus, here's 10. So if we gap 10 down and follow that same pattern, which again, that's your data, I mean, you're looking at, an opening of here. So, people are like, well, fuck, it's happened just recently. Frick yeah, it can happen. So again, they're corrupt. These AIs are not your friend. They're evil. If you believe in the devil, I think AI is the devil. Here's Cintas. Again, we talked about this area way back in here, and now we're on it. I said last week to keep your radars up. We're into the zone, time and price, right? So we got this lunar eclipse, and we're on the eclipse. So time and price. The solar is a little more important to me, but the lunar is important too. It's the highest tides, highest atmospheric tides, and oceanic tides. Weather changes, earthquakes, volcanoes. A lot of stuff happens on the lunar because of the gravitational effect, if you believe in gravity, which I do not. Okay, let's go on now. I'm going to set up the daily charts. Okay, in the video on the daily chart, you can see, again, I plotted the lunar eclipse in here. And of course, the 7th, right, which, again, I've told you we keep track of those on a monthly basis. That was an important swing. That's when the bear finally gave up its ghost and the bear turned into a bull on the 7th. So the 7th's important. I mark them on the chart. And then, of course, this 13th here was back in the COVID era. So, again, I keep track of that. And of course, this high, if we don't go up and take it out, it's pretty important too, 184.48. So this is the 12th, so we've got the 12th and 13th, right? So we're coming into that next moon or next period. So, I'll be adding one. I should probably have it on there. But we're below this support, right? This is a 1-to-1 of the slope. So 1-to-1 of the slope, again, 86.62 divided by 100, right? So basically you're squaring out the range of the low by hundredths. So that's squaring, again, there's an actual slope calculation, by the way, mathematically. I think most of your phones and stuff can calculate slope. But anyway, that's how I do it. But it's a little different than a 1-to-1. Normally, well, let me draw a 1-to-1 in here. A 1-to-1 is one speed over with one bar up. So this is a 1-to-1, which is important too, right? It definitely gave you, the squaring of that range for 1-to-1 square was this third high here, right? So again, 1-to-1s are important. I don't claim that they're not. Now again, the system don't care about any of this, right? This is my thing. This is the Gann thing. But also 1-to-1 of the slope is important too. It gave you some opportunity, hit this secondary event. Both of them did really. So anyway, it's kind of important, right? So that's why when you see that and when I talk about it, and sometimes they gel up. I know there was one chart here that we'll go through that definitely gelled up with 1-to-1 of the slope and also the mathematical 1-to-1. Here's Meta. Again, you can see the lunar eclipse is kind of there, a little gap up, which kind of interesting. Kind of an island thing, if you believe in islands. I'm not, but we got some things gap so much anymore with the AI that which you think it would gap less, right? AI is supposed to be smart. Here's Coke. Again, just a chopper. I'm going to get rid of this up here, but again, you can see we have some zones, 7th, 6th, the 24th, which was last year. Let's take a look at that annual. September, yeah, there it is right there. This was the annular. Pretty important high, right? This caused the, pretty good decline. Well, let me just run it in here. Damn it. I hate doing it. I get caught up in technical stuff because I love it. I believe that's... I can't see it. Oh, it is a percentage. Okay, that was 17.6% down. So, and you can see I'm rerunning it here just for the crap of it, from high to low, right? So it definitely squared out this. And this is the speed of that break, right? So kind of important. This is kind of the secondary event. I'm doing this on the fly. Sorry, I was going to do this. I should have been prepared. So anyway, no big deal. But you can see that this annual there that's coming up is important. That was a big swing, almost 20%, not quite. Now, which in Coke's a big move, by the way. All right, let's move on. Sorry. Here's Google. You can see a gap up. Oh, I got such a smarty eye. It doesn't know when it's going to freaking, it's undervalued and it didn't know that? Fucking come on. Freaking Google, them cheating cockroaches. Don't like it. Don't make sense to me. Anyway, here's, we had the lunar plus some annular in there. I guess that one's on the 8th. Sorry, we got an annular coming up. But this gap up, even though I hate it, in this day and age of Pentium processors, what we can't calculate it on a spreadsheet where it should be, for Christ's sakes. Anyway, pretty important though, so we'll give it its due. Definitely a bull market. The evil of the Google company is trending higher, so you can't fight the devil, so let's go with it. And again, there's no reason why not to stay with that trend. It hasn't really done anything negatory. Now, of course, for every action is equal, but opposite reaction, I expect to gap down at some point to hose everyone and lock them into a loss. Here's Microsoft. Again, I talked about this one as well, this gap up 11%, which was with the trend, so not as bad, but still terrible in this day and age. The smart AI that they promote sucks ass. Can't even freaking calculate their stock prices dropped. And I said I think it's over because they hosed everyone. All right, bull, never broke on this gap. Never broke, and then gapped down. That's it. What, gapped up and that was it? They just hosed everyone. Support's down here at these solars. So I expect it to probably go down there. Fill in this gap probably makes sense. Here's Amazon. Again, kind of a coil. Got nicked in here. We had our stops. We had them up here. They knocked us in. So just kind of there. Let's get rid of this thing. So yeah, the 7th, again, here's our low, pretty important zone we're on right here. I don't know why I didn't run these over, but losing some data on these charts. I don't know where it goes. It's like it's the ether sucks it up. Anyway, you can see it's just a gap and stupid thing. Again, AI don't work. Apple gapped up, made new highs. Kind of a breakout gap, really. I mean, it's an inside the range, so you really can't claim too much. But this is one of them that hasn't made a new high in a long time. It's going to be a year shortly, so we're coming upon the annular of a year from not making new highs. That's a slow bull. Tesla, same way. Has been a while since we made a new high. It's been a year there too, and it's way off its mark. So Lin kind of there. Big outside period, which again to me is sideways. So we're probably getting close to a corrective zone, right? Maybe go down here one more time just for good measure to get stops. Why not? Again, it's choppy. Again, which direction the trend is choppy. So you expect them to knock out this shit. So if you're a day trader, right, go down here and put your orders. Don't get too anxious. And if you're a bear, right, you got to assume this is probably the end of it. You probably want to wait till you get a little pop up and find something up there to sell against. Here's ED. Again, we talked about it making new lows, and it did. Just a weak stick. I'm going to get rid of this. It's so far out of the realm. Lunar eclipse, the 8th, which were the highs. Again, the 13th was this low down here. So all pretty key for next week. Now, that's into the kind of the solar period. So I don't know. I just think it's going to be an interesting trade on this ED. Now, again, a few of the stocks made new highs, and a few have made 60-day lows. So it's kind of a mixed bag. We'll get into that here in 1 second. Adobe, it did not pop a new low. So again, still a double bottom threat, which is confirmed. The 1-to-1 is the key. So assume the cross area is important. Solar eclipse up here is probably more logical of resistance. Here's IBM. Now it did drag us into a long position, but it's a slow turd. It still looks heavy to me. You can see 54 days over. Normally 55 is what I use, but 54 is a cycle of this low to this high to this period, basically a cycle of 54. But again, 55 the next day over, which is the 12th also. So that's kind of my matrix stuff. But you can see we got some stuff here. A gap up would be kind of bully Monday. Here's BK, kind of there. Acted a little toppy, just an outside period again. So to me, sideways drop more than likely. Procter & Gamble, just a creeper. Again, kind of, we've spent more time going up now than any of these rallies. So something's different, right? We poked a new low. I guess you can probably look at a maybe parallel possibility, right? Yeah, I mean, this is kind of the parallel of this mathematical. So whoopie-doo-dah day, just a chopper. And then JP Morgan, the diamond, again, also a chopper. We pop new highs, look pretty good, then kapoof, down she goes. We got some zones in here to contend with, so I don't know which way it's going to be. It might be a low, might be a high. Makes sense a little bit that was an exhaustion kind of trade. Really, to tell the tale, you're going to have to see the close on Monday. Not open don't matter much, right? Because it's a chopper, but the close is lower. That's a little ugly Monday, I think, and then you're vulnerable to at least get stops out down here. As a short term, again, because it didn't give you any direction in 2 months, so you assume it's sideways, so we know that it's probably going to at least stop them people out that are long from down there. Here's Coinbase, again, another outside period, a lot of zones, so it makes sense that we're seeing these outside periods. The 7th is a key, man. That's a big one. Only but a handful did not make a low on the 7th. Some were the 8th, which still kind of falls into that. And there was a few that were, made a bear trap, a month later, or 3 weeks later. So there's a few that are a little different, but most of them, the 7th is pretty key. Whoop. Here's Cintas. We talked about the support levels, which again, there are two. Your radar should have been up once we started making new lows here, right? If you're a bull wanting to buy a dip. Now, system don't do that, but if that was my system of buying dips, my radar would be up. Maybe buy stops over this high or something, right? Whatever your system is. I would turn it on now to be a buyer Cintas. Now maybe it's a bear, right? Again, it is bearish right now, but if you only buy dips and you never sell the market, these are the kind of actions you look for to buy in your stock portfolios. Again, if you don't have my select stocks, you can pick whatever you want, right? I'm just saying that you don't buy strength in most of these markets unless it's a new beginning bull. These are old bulls that are turning into either tops or bears or consolidational periods, pennants, coils, that kind of thing. Those are tough, but this is your ABC kind of correction. Zone, I imagine it. Maybe there's a percentage. Let me look. Yeah, you're just beyond the 50 percentile of that range from low to high. So again, makes sense, right? There's a lot of reasons. Now, again, if you're a bear and you sold it up here, you might buy calls against your positions, right? Or something like that. This ain't a place to sell new positions. You wait for the next corrective zone to add to your shorts. Or now you might take profits. Let's say you have 200 shares, you might get out of 50 here, right? Keep 150. Or again, buy if you have 200 shares short, you buy one call maybe, or three calls, right? Depending if you're more neutral or bearish, or maybe you're a fundamental guy and you use a little bit of the technicals to aid in your trading of your fundamental trade, then maybe there's a report and you don't, maybe you're a dividend guy and you like to collect the dividend. Well, these are the areas where if you have puts on, you probably get out, right? If you covered some of your dividend risk up here. Anyway, that kind of thing. Let's go now to this is the S&P E-mini. Again, you can see we have, just a creeper. I mean, it closed lower. Whoopie fucking doodah day. These creepers are just a money-making machine. Again, we have no foundation on this building, on this house, on this bull. So that is always in the back of my mind. If I had a large chunk positions on with no puts or something, I'd be nervous as shit because I know that when it breaks, it's going to be ugly. Now, maybe it won't break for a year. See, that's the thing. That's where options can help you a little bit. That was the Dow. Here's the NASDAQ. Again, unknown if it's a top. Likely it's a consolidational period, right? It just looks like it. Again, looks like. It doesn't mean it's going to be. I think we could go down here, pop these lows out, and still be sideways. But this chart definitely has more of an upward bias, no foundational look than the Dow has a little more foundation. And QQQ, which we just pulled up, also has no foundation. Just a slow slog. Again, it's kind of changing its the speeds of getting slower, which again to me makes sense on an inverted market like the Q. So again, we keep adjusting this. But you can see it makes sense on the chart a little bit on this channel. It keeps slowing down, but again, if it starts popping out highs, gets really aggressive, then you know that it's possible that that this speed line. Let me change colors. Freaking egg. There we go. We can see that one. You can see that this speed line is way up there. So again, but it's close enough, right? It could do both. So again, this makes a little sense on the QQQ. I want to now go to. I'm going to set up something on a second. Okay, I've been kind of bringing up some commodities. Since I don't have a big selection of stocks in my portfolio, the commodities kind of, some of these used commodities. We're going to talk about the livestock. I mean, I went through grains, I believe, one week. I think last week I kind of went through the energies. I'll go through the metals once, and then I'll kind of keep circulating until we're done here in January. But here's the Deest cattle. This is a weekly continuation chart, and you can see it's a bull market, right? So your costs at the store are not going to go down. This bull is alive. It isn't trading like it's undervalued at any stretch. So, but again, the cattle to me is like gold, or it's like Bitcoin. It's your premium. You can trade the dog with fleas, or you can trade the premium, and I think the cattle are the premium. And of course, one other one that follows suit is the feeder cattle. Now, if you're not understanding, feeders are the ones that you replace. Once you sell the fat cattle, you buy the smaller, weight cattle to replace them. And this is the feeder cattle market, 300 and some dollars. So it's not cheap to replace these cattle, right? So the risk is still there, even though it's a bull market. And you go, oh, these cattle guys are making a lot of money. Well, the cost to replace those fats, so they call them fat cattle, is quite high. So the store price is not going to go down anytime soon because they're replacing at this high price. So again, both part of the same deal. They just break it down again for the other one. Now the poor dog with fleas is the hogs. Now you can see they made a pretty big run back in 2014. So, but quite cheaper. Hence, you can buy pork. A pork butt or stuff like that in your grocery store a lot cheaper because it's not making new highs or anything. Now it's still up there. Trust me. Hogs are like rats. You can breed hogs quite quickly. You can get from 10 to 20 in a litter, where cows you usually get just one, and hopefully you get one, right? So maybe two, sometimes. But again, so the pigs are like rats. Don't take long to build up supply at these high prices. But we need the food, right? So I mean, I don't know about lambs or sheep or the goat market. I don't know how big that is here in the United States or globally. I'm sure it's big other places. But so this is just a kind of a quick review on the hogs and the cattle. I think it's important to know where your food comes from. So, and especially you guys who invest and have a wide-ranging stock portfolio, it's kind of nice to know where some of these break down. If you're in a restaurant, investing in restaurants as an example, the cost of these products make the prices at the restaurants go up, hence people pay more at the restaurant, right? So, and one important fact though is the price of fuel has come down, which again, shipping the stuff has been super expensive until the last 3 or 4 months. So hopefully the shipping stays a little cheaper, give people a little bit of an offset. All right, I'm rambling a little bit. I just wanted to share that with you, and you can go back and look. I think the energies last video last week. So, all right, I'm going to sign off. Everybody have a wonderful trading next week. And be careful on this lunar eclipse here tomorrow. Don't get too crazy. Be safe.